Okay. Looks like we're live on YouTube and Facebook, so just bear with me a second. I'm almost done. All right, let's get this kicked off. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I am Juliette Abdel, President and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce. If this is your first time on our page, I encourage you to like and follow the page so you can get those alerts when we do go live or post fresh content. Of course, we are on a variety of social platforms, so you can find this very broadcast streamed onto our YouTube channel, that's Westminster Chamber of Commerce. You can also connect with us on our Instagram at WestC Chamber, our Twitter page at WestC Chamber, and of course on our LinkedIn page, Westminster Chamber of Commerce. Different social media platforms allow for us to share different types of messaging, and we want to make sure that you are capturing all the communications that we distribute out. If you are tuning back in with us, well, thank you for coming back and finding value in our live broadcasts. Please be sure that you hit the thumbs up button or start commenting so I know who's tuned in with us. Of course, these videos are available to you at any point in time to rewatch. They're in the video section of this Facebook page. They're also on our YouTube channel, as mentioned, and on the Westminster Chamber COVID Resource Hub, which you can find the link to on our westminsterchamber.biz page. Now, today's topic is, of course, our Business Success Series, which identifies a business that's connected with our Chamber of Commerce, how they've weathered COVID over the last several months, and they go into a little bit of a deep dive on how they've been affected by COVID, what they've done to support their employees, their customers, and things that you could potentially learn from in your business. You've seen me introduce before Mark Petrovic. He is on our board of directors for the Westminster Chamber. Earlier on, he came on here to share with us information as it relates to sustainability and best practices at home. A lot of us were at home, and we were experiencing a lot of waste that was going on, a lot of consumption taking place. We had family, we had this whole new dynamic that was created. And so we had Mark on here with us to share some tips. This time we've brought him on to share a little bit more about Republic, which is generally what he does when he's not supporting the Chamber, to talk a little bit about how they have overcome some of COVID's obstacles and what they have in place. So with that, Mike, I'm going to actually mute myself, and I will have you take this away and share with us some information about Republic, and we'll transition over to your slides. I see Brian Head is already on here with us. Thank you for tuning in, Brian. Alberto Garcia, our former Mayor Pro Tem, appreciate you guys hopping on.
Thank you, Juliette. I appreciate it, and thank you for the time to speak this morning. So good morning to everyone. My name is Mark Petrovic, and I am with Republic Services. So for many of you, or some of you that may not know who Republic is, we are one of the largest recycle and trash service providers in the country. Our business units do operate independently in 41 states across the U.S. And here in Denver, Republic has one hauling division where all of our collection vehicles are based out of, and that is located in Commerce City. And then we also own and operate two landfills in the area as well. That's the Tower Landfill, which is located by Denver International Airport, and then also the Foothills Landfill, which is off of Highway 93, just west of Golden. Between our hauling operation and landfill operations, we do employ right around 310 Coloradoans currently, and we are growing. So that's just a little bit about Republic in case you were not familiar with us. And today we're going to talk about COVID when it hit us all in March, how that impacted Republic and what we've done as a company locally and also as an organization nationally to address this. So our customers continue to get the service they expect, and then our employees are safe when they're doing their daily duties. So as we all know, COVID really hit with an impact in March of this year, 2020. So Republic Services, as you can imagine, all waste industry, waste service providers, we have been deemed an essential service, which is a benefit. We did not, as a result of that, Republic did not have any furloughs or layoffs for employees across the country due to the pandemic. And actually, we have been hiring through this whole process. So that is one benefit to the industry, is we are essential. Being an essential service and not having to eliminate jobs, definitely a positive. However, it is definitely not business as usual for us. Every day, locally and nationally, we're working as a team to try to manage this unique set of evolving circumstances, and emphasis on the word evolving, because it does change. And as we know, numbers in Colorado are going up and different restrictions get placed. So it's not something that's one and done. It's something we have to manage daily. So the actions Republic took during the pandemic, and I broke it down to a couple different topics, would be protecting our employees, focusing on operations, and then supporting our customers. So protecting our employees, at the beginning of COVID in March, Republic as an organization had 90% of our 6,000 frontline employees shifted to remote working. I still work remotely. All council meetings and different things I attend, they're either Zoom or this platform or Microsoft Teams. So I am still one of the sales, accounting, customer service, and general administrative that are working remotely. And that may stay, that may be permanent, like a lot of businesses. We may not be back in the office on a full-time basis. Couple of other things we did. Republic, for what they offered for any employees that were affected by COVID, Republic provided an additional 10 days of PTO or paid time off for those employees, in addition to what they had already earned. And then also, in addition to that, Republic did cover all COVID-related medical expenses. So Republic employees, they do have full medical benefits, but Republic did cover the cost of any COVID-related medical expenses. And then also, of course, all employees were provided necessary PPE, masks, and gloves, in addition to the normal protection equipment we have for our frontline employees. But that's a big hit. And I do know from working with Juliet, a lot of grant money has been spent in providing PPE to a lot of employees. So I know it's a big deal, and I know it's expensive. So Republic stepped up and made sure that everybody had the necessary equipment. When we focus on operations, there were a lot of things we had to do to keep employees safe, because as you can imagine, we have 160 employees that gather in the morning to go out on their route, and we could not have a normal process where they all gathered and socialize in the morning before they went out and did their work. So a lot of things had to change operationally. One is we enhanced all the sanitizing protocols for all operational workspaces. Our office does have janitorial service come in, but that ramped up dramatically, as you can imagine, to where it happens every day and it's sanitized every day, just to make sure that if we did have an employee come in that was sick, that we were getting everything taken care of as best that we could. As I just mentioned, all gathering areas were closed off, the lunch rooms, the locker rooms, all those types of things. Those workspaces were closed off to minimize people gathering. The normal course of business for Republic is we do wash a trash collection vehicle once a week. But during COVID, the interior of every truck, and this is still happening today, is professionally cleaned and sanitized, and that's on a daily basis. So you can imagine the expense that's coming out of that to have 160 vehicles that are sanitized every night, and that's done in the evening. All of our trucks are back in, 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and they're back out by 3 in the morning the next day. So all that work needs to be done on an after-hours basis, and it's still going on today. Also, nationally, we have something called Blue Crew, and what they call Blue Crew is that is drivers across the country that sign up to be on call in case there is an issue and they need to be flown out to another state to help fill in on routes that may be empty for a driver being sick or injured. So we put together a system that we have in place that would remedy any shortages that might come about, whether COVID, or we also have that in place if we're not union in Colorado, but there are places that are union across the country. So if you ever had an issue with a union issue, right, we have that in place. So we do that because people expect their trash to be serviced every day, and they obviously you can imagine they're not going to take it too well if we call them and say, look, your guy's sick, we're not going to be there for a week or two. That's probably not going to go well. We also, in March through the end of May, we did suspend all bulk collection and yard waste collection. And we did that to accommodate the increases that we were anticipating in the residential volumes. We did lift that suspension of service in June. Now, one thing that was confusing to people is they thought that we suspended that because we didn't want our drivers handling material. We thought that could be a COVID related thing and they would be exposing themselves. And really that wasn't what was behind it. We didn't really think that had much of an impact because we hadn't seen any people coming down with it by being en route. It's more of a person-to-person contact. It was really to accommodate the increase in volumes that we were seeing or anticipated. And I'll touch on that in a little bit. One other piece that Republic did on a national level, and very proud of Republic for doing this. We're a big organization, and a lot of times stuff like this falls under the radar. People just don't hear about it. But what Republic did is they committed $20 million of money to a Committed to Serve initiative, which supported our essential employees that are all of our frontline employees. And really, what this $20 million nationally is Republic provided a $100 gift card to every frontline employee across the country every other week. So a total of $400 per employee was provided to them. There was no taxes on it. It was all trued up. So it was just a straight $400. And really what we wanted our employees to do is to spend that money in the local and small businesses in the communities we serve and where our employees live. We knew that there was a big slowdown in all of the retail, restaurants, and all the commercial business that we do. So we did want our employees to use this money to help support small businesses that they normally would frequent in their neighborhoods. We really couldn't tell them what to do with the money. We wanted them to spend it. If they were going to pay some bills with it, that was fine. But the intent was this money to be spent to help stimulate the economy and keep these people, these small businesses afloat. So that was $20 million on a national level, and there was over $160,000 we spent locally at the Denver hauling and landfill. Part of that Committed to Serve was the gift card, but also through March, April, and May, we did provide lunches and breakfast for our drivers every day because we knew that a lot of businesses were closed. So we were providing food for them. And then also on every Friday, we were providing meals for our frontline employees to take home. That was a meal intended for a family. So it was a larger meal that they could pick up after work and take home and enjoy with their family. So that's part of that $160,000 that we spent. Republic really stepped up to make sure that the communities and customers we serve, and then also our employees, were getting the meals and everything they needed and a little extra money to help during a difficult time. If there are any questions when I get to the end, we can go through, and I'd be happy to answer any of those as we continue. So,
as you take a pause, okay, Mark, I'm just going to go ahead, and I know that was a lot of information, so I just want to give a quick shout out to Dave Carpenter. I see you on here with us. Brian Dice has also hopped on to tune in and just kind of earlier shared a nice good morning message our way. For those of you that are starting to tune in, we have with us Mark Petrovic from Republic Services. He's talking all things COVID-19, how that affected their particular industry, their business, what programs they would have brought on to try and alleviate the burden for their employees, their customers, and of course, what that has morphed into.
Okay, thank you,
Mark,
Juliet.
your turn.
So that's really how we address, and we continue to address, the sanitizing and all the PPE and all that other stuff, social distancing. We still practice that on a normal basis. We still provide additional PTO and covering medical expenses for any COVID related. So all that is still in place and active, and still 90% of our 6,000 employees, that non-frontline employees, sales, general, administrative, customer service, we are still working remotely. That's still in place. So we'll talk a little bit about the new normal that we're seeing at Republic, shifting volumes of waste, the impacts of residential volume, and then the industry increased costs that we saw as an industry. So as you can imagine, a lot of retail. Well, let me just take a step back. In our industry, we have three lines of business. We have the residential, which we're all familiar with, the curbside stuff you folks have, many of you. We have commercial line of business, which are dumpsters. You would have at retails or liquor stores or restaurants or what have you. And then industrial side of the business. Industrial and commercial saw a dramatic decrease in volumes because retail and industry was really closed down for quite some time. So there was a dramatic decrease in that line of business. But then you can imagine the residential line of business really had a substantial increase. We did see 22% increase in residential volume in Denver. So that was our local statistic. 30% we saw an increase nationally. And so we saw that because we all know more residents were forced to be at home during March, April, and May. Now there are still a lot of folks that are at home. People are still working from home. Kids are partially going to school. My daughter goes to school a couple days a week, but then 3 days a week, she's still at remote learning. And a lot of kids still opted to go to college remotely. So instead of having kids at school and family members at work, they are all at home, and all of that waste is being generated and being put out at a curbside at their residential. We all remember the surge in panic purchasing that happened in March and April, where there were several goods and items that you could not get your hands on because of the panic purchasing. And then also a lot of e-commerce. So e-commerce has always been a deal. We see a lot of cardboard boxes recycling from all the Amazon purchases and e-commerce, but that really ramped up during COVID, people not going out, people ordering food from all the services that are available. So all of those things combined really drove the volume at a curbside level. And so how that impacts us. When you have residential collection trucks out there doing their normal route, we document everything. We're a very metric-driven industry, and so we know about how many stops it's going to take until our truck is full and we need to go to the landfill. Well, what's happened is the trucks are filling faster, and instead of having our calculated 2 landfill trips a day, that's requiring an additional landfill trip a day. And that might not sound like a big deal, but when you pull off of route and go to the landfill and then come back from the landfill, that can add anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes to your day as a driver. And our drivers already are running 10 to 11 hour a day job. So when you start adding that additional landfill trip, you're pushing a 12-hour, which is, if you go above 12 hours, that is a violation. On the in our industry, the Department of Transportation, our drivers can work a maximum of 12 hours a day. So that is something we need to navigate. As a result of that, we did have to put additional trucks on the road, drivers, and additional hours. We did pull commercial and industrial drivers that had a downturn in their volume to put them on residential routes so we could actually get our customers serviced in a timely fashion. 22% increase in residential volume. Not only is that time, there's a dollar tied to the amount of time, but there's a tonnage expense as well, all the stuff that's taken to the landfill and the recycling facility. So that 22% runs about $40,000 a month to the bottom line increase that we are paying in a residential type of service. Customers' rates are set on a monthly basis. They're not volume based. We don't increase if you have more trash. We don't decrease if you have less. It's basically a flat rate. And so that 22% or $40,000 a month in increased tonnage expense is just eaten by Republic on the bottom line, because there are no increases currently to residential rates. Industry had an increased cost, and those included, again, I'll be repeating, but the cleaning and sanitizing of our fleet on a daily basis. I don't have that number. I couldn't find that. So I don't know exactly what that's costing us, but I'm sure it's not an inexpensive thing to have 160 trucks sanitized daily. I just don't know the amount. The increase in PPE needed to ensure our driver safety. All the high vis and the gloves and the boots and all that stuff and safety glasses is a normal PPE for our industry. However, all the masks and gloves and all the additional PPE that we've brought in was and still is an additional cost. Disposal costs, as I mentioned. And then one that I have not mentioned is bad debt. That is something that we are seeing. We're seeing it from residential customers as well as commercial. So our normal process of trying to collect or having to turn people's service off, we have not done that. We have been very flexible about people that are unable to pay their bills, and we're continuing to provide service. So that's another piece where bad debt is impacting us, while we continue to provide the service for people that have a hardship, whether it's business or residential. So that's another impact that we have seen that is continuing and still going on today. To wrap up, what we anticipate going forward in the next 2 years, we do expect the residential volume to remain elevated. Statistically, our studies have shown, I don't know where the studies came from, but our corporate office does work with third-party vendors that do surveys and studies, that we anticipate less than 50% of the people are still willing to go out, other than maybe work or some essential services, maybe getting their haircut or grocery store or what have you. But generally, the majority of folks are still staying at home. Like Republic, we imagine a lot of businesses and a lot of employers will still offer their employees the opportunity to continue to work from home. We think that is going to be the new norm. And so there will be more people working from home on an ongoing basis. E-commerce is not slowing down. That is still elevated. Our recycling volumes are through the roof, and so are our landfill volumes. So that will continue. And then college students and elementary. Honestly, I think elementary school kids go to school. I don't know. I don't have an elementary school kid, but high school kids are only going to in school part-time and then part-time at home. So there'll still be a lot of kids at home bringing that volume in. One last piece before I close and take any questions. Commercial and industrial, we're starting to see a slight increase in business and industry. So that has begun to reopen a little bit. It's a slow recovery. Now, that is dependent on what's going on in Colorado right now. I know Juliet was on a call this morning in Adams County, which had to scale back on the opening because of an increase in an uptick. I think other counties are on the cusp of seeing the same thing. So really, that industry could take a step backwards if we continue to see the increases in cases that we're having here currently in Colorado. So that's a little bit, that's a 30,000-foot view of Republic and what we've seen as an industry, how we've addressed it, and what we see going forward, impacts to our business due to COVID. And I'm happy to take any questions people have, or I have a presentation I could bring up and we can go through and see a few of the slides if you want to see some of the increase in volumes. We'll leave that up to Juliet.
Thank you, Mark. And I see Elizabeth on here and a couple of other folks that have popped on. I've done my best to paraphrase a lot of what Mark has shared with us into the comment section of this broadcast. Please feel free to use the comment section for any comments that you may have or just questions, whether or not you popped on just moments ago or earlier on. If you have any questions related to Waste Management Republic or any of the content that Mark had shared with us. And I had no idea you guys were doing any of this stuff, Mark. So I see you quite frequently and did not realize that you all are out there, not just in the community servicing your clients, your residents, and your businesses, but also supporting your employees. And I'm very pleased to see that you guys are providing them with PPE, that you were also feeding them throughout the workday and making sure that they had food to take home. I think that was something that supported them throughout this process. I do, I'm always curious with my own questions. So while people are thinking through, I see Councillor Seymour has hopped on here to share a quick good morning Westminster message our way. Thank you, Councillor Seymour. We are at the Q&A point. Mark, you mentioned to us that there wasn't really a slowdown for you all, right? So when COVID unfolded, you were still deemed an essential business. So you did not slow down. In fact, you actually had to ramp up somewhat more because of the need to continue to go back to your landfill. The truck it was interesting when you mentioned the 12-hour time, as soon as you mentioned something truck for me, it just sparks. So earlier on, there was an extension of the rules primarily for on-the-road drivers that did not support, it sounds like that would not apply to Republic and Waste Management Division. Is that accurate?
That's correct. So we did not have any leniency on that 12-hour violation. Obviously, we're driving a big vehicle in neighborhoods and things of that nature. So that 12-hour is still in place. It is from when a driver clocks in. It includes their trip to collection, landfill, everything until they clock out. So that's not just behind the wheel. And based on the volume we've been having, we're not able to get it all done in 12 hours, right? So we did have to transition some drivers in other lines of business to residential, and we are still hiring drivers. So if there are people out there that are looking for a career, Republic is hiring in all facets, whether it's drivers, operations supervisors, mechanics, office. We have not slowed down. We have ramped up. And so, that's a benefit. I feel very fortunate to be in an essential service. And we're just going to keep doing our thing.
Absolutely. And thank you for answering the secondary question that I had related to what types of positions you had available. And it sounds like it's a wealth of them. It's not just those driver positions. I was also intrigued that you had that national program your drivers can sign into, and should they be called on to travel and go fill in a position for somebody that they can do so. So I'm sure that's a nice perk for some people that are trying to get around the U.S. and in those parts. So, Mark, there were a few things that you touched on, several of the expenses that you guys have had to kind of endure along the way. You also touched on the percentage increase in residential that you had, about 20% for the consumer standpoint. You talked a little bit about recycling. How do we see recycling right now? Has there been an uptick in the plastics? You mentioned the single use and how people were going and purchasing things that weren't necessarily what they needed right up to that point. Are we seeing a difference in how recycling has also been handled? Is there a correlation, I guess, between the amount that people are purchasing and are they actually recycling those items, or have they let go of some of that as well?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So there has been an uptick in recycle. Now, one of the things with people that have food services is a lot of what comes in the clamshells and what you get is not recyclable. So that's unfortunate that a lot of DoorDash and all those other services, it's not a lot of it is recyclable. Some of it is, but not a lot. What we've seen an uptick in is a lot of boxes, cardboard, which is a valuable recyclable. So, all the Amazon stuff, or if people that have pets, if you get Chewy, they're all coming in cardboard boxes. So all of that stuff is recyclable. We have seen an uptick in it. But one of the problems we're running into is two problems: contamination, and then people's carts filling, and then they're just putting stuff in the trash. trash goes every week, recycle as the norm goes every other week. And so with people being at home, they're filling up their recycle containers ahead of time. And then what they're doing is they're just going ahead and putting it in the trash can because it goes every week. We do like to let people know, we communicate with folks that they can get an additional recycle container, and it's a very minimal charge to accommodate that waste. We have some success with it, but I would say the biggest benefit we're seeing is cardboard that's going to the recycle facility right now.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for that. I see Don Lath is on here as well. Thank you for tuning in. Mark, we believe it or not, we're already at our 30-minute mark, so I can't really continue to ask you any more questions or have you bring up the PowerPoint that we had in the background, but we'll make that PowerPoint available for folks that do want to kind of have a recap, if that's okay with you, and post that on our COVID site. Councilor Seymour kind of just shared thank you to you for being a great partner with the Chamber community. And I think it speaks volumes, right? A lot of times we see a lot of larger corporations or entities in our community. They're just in here essentially for business, and that's it. That has not been my experience personally with Republic, whether it was here in Colorado or even back home in Oklahoma. You guys are really invested and put your employees in the community to understand it. So we do entirely appreciate that. For those of you that have been tuning into this broadcast, please be sure that you do your part by sharing this out so people in your network get a better idea of what's going on in the industry. Folks that might be interested in applying for a new position, seeking new opportunities, or looking for a job. This is a great informative presentation on what Republic has been doing to take care of their employees and what they've been doing, of course, to take care of their consumers as well. And then if you are watching this on replay, make sure that you give us that hashtag replay so I know that you tuned into the broadcast and found it of value. Mark, I appreciate you being on here with us. Stay with me while I close this out fully. For those of you that are tuned in, you know that I come back to you on a daily basis. So I'll be back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. for our next broadcast. Please be prompt so you can tune into the full broadcast and bring any comments or questions that you might have. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Of course, you, Mark, for staying on here with me this long.
Thank you, Juliet.